Hello everyone. Today, our channel brings you another emotionally charged episode in the sweet yet intensely dramatic love story of CEO James and Lai Tu Dieppe. In the previous episode, we witnessed the return of Trang, a calculating and jealous woman consumed by her desire to sabotage the happiness James and Dieppe have built together. She didn't stop at spreading lies or staging pathetic dramas. No, Trang went as far as to use every deceitful trick in the book to try and break their unshakable bond. Yet all her schemes fell flat in the face of the deep love and unwavering trust that James and Dieppe have for one another. But what's truly terrifying is, Trang isn't backing down. The more she fails, the more dangerous she becomes. And now, darker, more sophisticated schemes are quietly taking shape in the shadows. Will James and Dieppe realize the lurking danger in time? Does James have the strength to protect the home they've fought so hard to build? And as for Trang, just how far is she willing to go to fulfill her twisted ambitions? Don't forget to subscribe and follow our channel so you won't miss a single twist in this heart-tugging journey of love, struggle, and the fight to protect true happiness between James and Dieppe. After the storms comes the peaceful days. After enduring countless storms, misunderstandings, and moments when turning back seemed impossible, the love between James and Lai Tu Dieppe not only remained unbroken, but grew deeper and stronger than ever before. There were long nights when they simply sat in silence beside each other. No words were spoken, but just a glance, just a gentle squeeze of the hand, was enough for their hearts to quietly touch and begin to heal the wounds that once bled. They had walked through pain, survived heartbreak, and most importantly, they had learned how to forgive. James was no longer the cold-hearted CEO who only cared about work and numbers. He had become a mature man, one who now kept a part of his mind and heart always thinking about his little family. Where Dieppe was, where their daughter's laughter echoed, and where even the simplest meals were filled with love. As for Dieppe, the girl who once carried so many emotional scars, now her smile shone brighter than ever, because by her side was the man who had chosen to love her, to trust her, and to stand by her no matter the gossip, temptations, or schemes that tried to tear them apart. One peaceful morning, as sunlight filtered through the glass windows of the office, James was focused on reviewing reports when his mother, the woman who once held firm disapproval for his relationship with Dieppe, quietly stepped in. Her face no longer bore its usual sternness. Instead, it was softened with warmth and contentment. The look of a mother who had finally realized that her son's happiness wasn't rooted in prestige, but in love, and that the one who brought peace to his heart was Dieppe. She gently placed a hand on James's shoulder, looked at him lovingly, and spoke in a calm, heartfelt voice. "My son, I've spent half my life with this company. It's time for me to rest, and I believe you're ready to carry on the legacy I've built." James was momentarily surprised but said nothing. His mother continued, "But I'm not just handing over the company to you. I want Dieppe to become your personal secretary, someone who will walk beside you, not only in life, but also in business. You two have already overcome so much together. Now, it's time to build a future side by side." James looked up and met his mother's gaze, no longer filled with prejudice or distance, but with love, understanding, and trust. he fell silent. In that moment, he realized, after everything, the most precious thing they had wasn't wealth nor status, but family, a place where each person saw the other fully through the heart. The scene transitions to the new office. Dieppe walked into the CEO's office, now James's official workplace, holding her first stack of documents as his secretary. She wore a modest yet elegant suit, her eyes shining with confidence. James looked at her and smiled gently. "Welcome, Secretary Lee. From now on, you'll be my partner on 2 fronts, both at home and at the company." Dieppe laughed softly and replied, "Yes, sir, but don't worry. I won't let work interfere with home life. Dinner still needs to be on time, you know." Their laughter echoed warmly between them, light, natural, and full of affection. When darkness consumes the heart, a horrifying plot against James and Dieppe's family. In the shadowy corner of the sweet love story between James and Dieppe, a soul was gradually being devoured by darkness. Trang, a woman who once had it all, had now become a mere outsider, her heart scorched by jealousy and hatred. Trang couldn't comprehend why James chose Dieppe. In her eyes, Dieppe was inferior in every way: family background, education, even appearance. And yet, it was Dieppe who possessed the one thing Trang had always longed for: James's sincere love. She sat alone in her luxurious yet cold apartment, surrounded by expensive items, but her heart felt empty. Her gaze fell upon a photo of James, Dieppe, and their little daughter. Her eyes no longer held mere envy, but a growing, uncontrollable rage. In Trang's twisted mind, one terrifying thought took root. If Dieppe and that child disappeared from this world, James would come back to me. This was no longer about misunderstandings or schemes to create tension. This time, Trang had crossed the final line between jealousy and crime. She began crafting a merciless plan: eliminate Dieppe and the child at all costs. The very next morning, her scheme began. Trang hired someone to secretly follow Dieppe and her daughter, tracking every step from their home to the kindergarten, the supermarket, even the peaceful moments at the park. She documented their routines, schedules, cold and calculated, like a predator patiently waiting to strike. Then the day came. It was a bright, sunny morning, as if nothing dark was looming. Trang appeared at James's doorstep, carrying a basket of fruit, wearing a sweet smile laced with poison. She knocked, and Dieppe, ever kind-hearted and forgiving, invited her in. Trang gently bowed her head, eyes brimming with tears, offering heartfelt apologies for all past misunderstandings. Dieppe, holding no grudges, smiled softly. "We're all women. Misunderstandings happen. As long as there's sincerity, anything can be forgiven." Trang smiled in return, but her eyes glinted with a deadly chill. She poured tea, handed over the fruit basket. "I brought this for you and your little one. I truly wish both of you health and happiness." The visit ended peacefully, seemingly clearing away all past resentment. That afternoon, with James away on a business trip, only Dieppe and her daughter remained at home. The little girl ran to her mother and said, "Mommy, I want the fruit Auntie Trang brought this morning." Dieppe nodded with a gentle smile, suspecting nothing. She peeled the fruit, arranged it on a plate, and the two of them shared it with laughter filling the air. But when night fell, tragedy struck. First, it was Dieppe. She felt dizzy, breathless. Then the little girl began to cough, her face flushed red, hands trembling. Panic rose in Dieppe as she clutched her daughter, trying to call James but lacking the strength to hold the phone. Her vision blurred. Luckily, James arrived home just in time. He rushed in and froze at the sight of his wife and daughter collapsed on the floor. Without hesitation, he gathered them into his arms and sped to the hospital, his heart torn to shreds. For 3 agonizing hours, James sat outside the emergency room, clutching his head, eyes red with fear and helplessness. For the first time in his life, the calm, composed man felt utterly powerless. "Please, don't take the 2 most important people from my life," he whispered through tears. Finally, the doctor stepped out, face serious. They both suffered severe poisoning. Fortunately, they were brought in just in time. We've stabilized them, but they'll need close monitoring. James broke down. The tears he had never allowed himself to shed now flowed freely, a mixture of overwhelming relief and gratitude. Days passed, and Dieppe and her daughter gradually recovered. James didn't leave their side for even a moment, tending to every meal, every rest, as if determined to devote his life to protecting them. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Trang exploded with rage upon hearing the 2 had survived. She screamed, destroying everything in sight, her eyes wild with fury. "I don't understand. Why? Why is she still alive? Why wasn't it me?" And then, her descent into madness neared its end. The next day, James summoned his most trusted assistant to his office. His expression was cold, his eyes razor-sharp. "I want everything investigated. The food from that day, everyone who came near my home. Use every resource, every connection. I must know who tried to harm my wife and daughter." When James, usually gentle and composed, was truly enraged, there was nowhere left for darkness to hide. The investigation began. Will James uncover the terrifying truth behind this attempted poisoning? How far will Trang go in her descent into madness? And after crossing the line between life and death, what awaits this small but resilient family? Is love strong enough to withstand destruction? That question was beginning to take shape in James's heart. A man who once believed that loving with all his soul would be enough to protect everything he held dear. But when the 2 most important people in his life were nearly taken away by a cruel and calculated plot, he finally understood. Love alone was not enough. James and Dieppe had endured so much, standing on the edge of heartbreak, betrayed by people they once trusted. Yet, despite it all, they kept holding on, kept choosing each other, kept loving. Theirs was a love without grand promises, yet strong enough to overcome prejudice, wounds, and every trial thrown their way. But life doesn't always give warnings before it tests you. Trang, a woman who once belonged to the warm corners of James's memories, had now become an unrelenting nightmare. Jealousy, pain, and resentment had blinded her, twisting her thoughts until she could no longer tell right from wrong. And in her distorted mind, one thought reigned supreme. If Dieppe was gone, James would come back. Then came the plan, cruel, cold, and methodically designed. All it took was a sweet smile, a basket of fruit that seemed harmless, but hidden within, a deadly poison waiting to claim lives. That moment, when James rushed into the house, found his wife and daughter collapsed on the floor, and carried them in his arms to the hospital, was the moment his heart was crushed. He had always thought he was strong enough to protect them, but now he knew, just 1 second too late, and he could lose his entire world. 3 hours in the emergency waiting room. 3 hours of pure fear and helplessness. They were the longest 3 hours of his life. And when the doctor finally said, "There's hope," James broke down. Tears, real, raw, and unrestrained, fell from a man who had never before bowed to pain. This time he cried for life. He cried because the two people he loved most were still alive. In the quiet of that pain, James made a vow to himself, "I won't let anyone hurt them again, ever." Meanwhile, when Trang heard that the plan had failed, when she found out Dieppe and the little girl were still alive, she lost all control. Walls couldn't contain the storm in her head. Her eyes no longer belonged to someone rational, but to a soul consumed by darkness, spiraling with no escape. And now, the price of her madness was catching up to her. The next morning, in a cold office, James sat still, his voice calm but chilling. "I don't need sympathy. I need the truth. Investigate everything. Whoever did this to my family will pay." In that moment, the gentle eyes of a husband and father had vanished, replaced by the piercing gaze of a man ready to go to war for those he loved. A man who would use every ounce of his strength, every resource, every connection to uncover the truth. Now, as the pieces begin to fall into place, will Trang's path of destruction finally come to an end? Will James uncover the full extent of this horrifying truth and have the strength to face it? And will the love that he and Dieppe built through pain and perseverance survive this storm once again? All will be revealed in the next episode, where secrets are exposed, where justice and darkness collide, and where love must once again stand on the edge of life and death. Subscribe and follow to witness the next heart-pounding chapter, where everything begins to unravel. Because true love isn't just measured by the happy days, but by how fiercely we fight to protect it when the darkness begins to fall.
Liệu con đường mà Trang đang đi có điểm dừng? Liệu James sẽ tìm ra toàn bộ sự thật và đứng vững trước những cú sốc kinh hoàng sắp sửa được vạch trần? Liệu tình yêu mà anh và Diệp đã cùng nhau xây dựng sau 3 tổn thương có thể tiếp tục sống sót trong cơn giông tố này? Tất cả sẽ được giải đáp trong tập tiếp theo, nơi những bí mật cuối cùng được đưa ra ánh sáng, nơi công lý và tội ác đối đầu trong trận chiến không khoan nhượng, và nơi tình yêu một lần nữa phải đứng trước thử thách sinh tử. Hãy đăng ký theo dõi và cùng chúng tôi bước tiếp chương tiếp theo đầy nghẹn thở, nơi mọi thứ bắt đầu được vén màn bởi tình yêu thật sự không chỉ được đo bằng những ngày hạnh phúc, mà bằng cả cách ta chiến đấu để giữ lấy nó khi bóng tối đang kéo dần.